Hello students. So recently we had discussed about numericals based on the concept of electric field and also a numerical based on the Coulomb's law application. Now we further proceed in the concept of electric field, and the important topic now is the Gauss's law in electrostatics. But before we proceed to the Gauss's law in electrostatics, we discuss about the electric flux. This is the term which has its use in this law. So first we understand this electric flux. Before we understand the electric flux, one more important thing is there, that here we will discuss or we will assume the area to be a vector quantity. It is sometimes preferable or convenient for us to assume the area to be a vector quantity. It solves so many conditions for us, and that also decides the content, the extent of something crossing that area. Say you have got water flushing out through a river or a streamline, water is flowing. We are holding an area, you can say pipe, across it, and if we are holding the area like this, so the flow of the liquid is maximum. But if we incline it like this, so the flow of the liquid through this area reduces and the direction also gets changed. So this area is deciding the direction of flow of water across it, also the content across it. So this is helping us in understanding or determining the area as a vector quantity. So here also we assume the area to be a vector quantity, and for our convenience, by default we have assumed that the area, whenever considered as vector, should be a vector normally outwards to the surface under consideration. That is, if this is the surface under consideration, this is the area which we are taking into account, and this is the area vector, then the direction of area vector is normal to the surface, perpendicular to the surface. This is what we have to keep in our mind while solving it out. So flux is actually the quantity of electric field lines, the amount of electric field lines that can cross through a given surface area. As I told you by the example of a water flowing through an area, we just discussed that it depends upon the inclination of the area element with the direction of flow. The inclination of the area element with the direction of flow, that decides how much content will be passing through it. So similarly we have assumed here an elementary area delta S, which is held such that the area vector n cap, you know that n cap represents a unit vector and which is only to represent the direction of vector. Any unit vector is used to represent the direction of a vector. So we have represented this direction of vector. So this is that area, and for this area vector is normally outward. Area normally outward like this. Now we are having this area held in a uniform electric field. This, you can see that the direction of electric field is in this way and the area vector is in this way. So they are inclined to each other at an angle theta. What is there? We identify the component of electric field along the direction of area vector, or vice versa. We can identify the area component along the direction of electric field, anything, but we prefer to find the component of electric field along the direction of area vector. Means in the direction of area, how much effect of electric field will be effective. So as we had discussed earlier, we had discussed in 11th and previously also we had just discussed, okay, if this is the vector, this is the angle theta in this direction, so component along this direction should be cos, and if it would have been perpendicular to this, good, it would have been E sin theta. But we have to discuss about this component, that is E cos theta. So this is E cos theta along the direction of area vector. The area element we have taken into consideration is delta S. So mathematically the flux about this elementary area delta S can be taken as how the product of the field component multiplied to the area. I repeat, the electric flux through this area element will be the product of the field component along the direction of area vector and the area itself. E cos theta into delta S or E delta S cos theta. Now we just discussed or we assumed that area is a vector quantity, and we had assumed or we know that electric field is a vector quantity. So both are the vectors, theta is the angle between them. So this can be taken as vector E dot delta S. A dot B, vector A dot vector B is equals to AB cos theta. We have used, you remember, recall that vector A dot vector B equals to AB cos theta. So we have used this equation here. It is E dot delta S. Now this delta S can also be termed, because we are representing in smaller elements, so we can have it as vector E dot vector ds. So delta phi E, electric flux through the elementary area, is vector E dot vector ds. So for any given surface, how much will be the net flux? So net flux will be phi, that is integration of delta phi E, that is integration of E dot ds. This is the total electric flux over any surface. This is the SI unit, Newton meter square coulomb inverse, and this is the dimensional formula for the electric flux. Now, using the concept of electric flux, Gauss represented a concept and he termed it as the Gauss's law in electrostatics, and he told us that if we assume any surface and we have kept a charge, say Q, inside the surface, so net flux coming out of this, that is phi E, it must be 1 upon epsilon naught times the charge enclosed by the surface. The total flux coming out of a surface is 1 upon epsilon naught times the charge enclosed within the surface. So phi E equals to Q upon epsilon naught. Remember that phi E we had just discussed can be taken as integration of E dot ds. So phi E dot ds, that is equals to Q upon epsilon naught. Now one more thing here, the sign of integration contains this circle and we have written here S. So this circle represents for the whole surface, for the entire surface under consideration, and this shows that we are discussing the surface. If we write integration sign for the whole surface, for the whole surface. So this is the meaning of this sign of integration. Now this is the Gauss's law. So now we discuss its proof. How can we prove this Gauss's law? Now we are going to discuss, in continuation of Gauss's law, the proof of Gauss's law. How can we have its mathematical proof? So we have considered here a charge plus Q, which is held at a point O of any sphere, which is just having the charge at its center, plus Q charge. Obviously when the charge is here, positive charge, so the field lines will start moving outwards. So for an isolated charge, the field lines are moving outward. They will be radially outward for a sphere. They will be radially, means along the radius they will be coming out. So this is the direction of electric field vector. This is the direction of vector R, means they both are parallel to each other. So electric field at any point P on the surface will be Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught R square into R cap. This is the general formula for the electric field, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q upon R square. R is the distance of point P from the center O, that is where we have placed the charge. So Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught R square. This is a field into R cap. We have just put R cap to represent the direction of electric field. And what we have seen that R cap is radially outwards along the direction of electric field. So this is the direction of electric field vector. So R cap is the unit vector along OP. Again, it is just to symbolize the direction of vector E, and because it is radially outward, so R cap is also radially outward. Now we consider an elementary area ds surrounding the point P. So area vector for ds will be normally outward, that is n cap. We can see that for a sphere, the radially outward or the normally outward, they both are in the same direction. If we draw a sphere, so normally outward and radially outward are in the same direction. So r vector and ds vector, that is n cap vector, they both are along the same direction, means parallel to each other. So vector ds we have taken as ds into n cap, where ds is the magnitude of the vector we have taken into consideration, and n cap is a unit vector which is normally outwards, So electric flux over this area ds, how much will it be? We just discussed that phi should be equal to E dot ds. E is q upon 4 pi epsilon r square r cap, the equation 1, and vector ds is coming from equation 2, that is ds into n cap, dot product between the two vectors. This can be rearranged to form the equation q upon 4 pi epsilon r square ds into r cap dot n cap. Again, r cap and n cap are in the same direction. Both are radially outward, both are parallel to each other. So we know that the r cap dot n cap, when they are parallel, so this should be equal to, how much will it be? This will come out to be 1. Simply, cos product will be there, r cap, n cap, cos theta. Theta is 0, so 1. Their magnitudes are also 1. And in the previous class we had discussed, that for any two unit vectors, the cross product is 0 and the dot product is always 1. Okay, so dot product of two unit vectors, for any two unit vectors, the dot product is always 1. So we have taken r cap dot n cap as equals to 1. So there q upon 4 pi epsilon r square ds, that is simply left for us. Now if we have to identify the total flux through the surface, what we are doing? We are proving the Gauss's law. What it says, that the total flux is 1 upon epsilon naught times the charge enclosed. So total flux will be the integration of d phi over the whole surface. So we place here the d phi e value, q upon 4 pi epsilon naught r square ds. Now rules of integration, what they say, that the constants are to be kept out of integration sign. Here q, the charge, constant, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, already a constant of proportionality which has come from the Coulomb's law, we remember that, and r is the radius of the sphere, which is again a constant. For a given sphere, for a given charge, q and r are constants, so we have taken it out. Why not ds is constant? Because we have assumed it. This elementary area we have taken into assumption, so we do not know how much is it. It can be lesser, by our assumption it can be more, so we have taken it as a variable. So this remains inside. So q upon 4 pi epsilon naught r square is taken out, integration of ds over the whole surface. Now what is this surface? A sphere. And what is the total surface area of the sphere? Recall it, total surface area of the sphere, yes, that is 4 pi r square. 4 pi r square is the total surface area of the sphere. So we place it here. You just cancel out the terms. 4 pi r square is cancelled here, 4 pi r square. We are left with what? Q upon epsilon naught. So this is that phi e equals to integration of E dot ds, that equals to Q upon epsilon naught. This is what is the statement of the Gauss's theorem. So this proves the Gauss's theorem. That is how we can prove the Gauss's law. Now we will discuss in further videos the application of Gauss's theorem. For that, remember that we have to assume an imaginary surface which we call as the Gaussian surface. Any imaginary surface, that we will discuss in the next video. Thank you. Please subscribe the channel.